Hello, good morning. Mr. Snow here. Part 2, how to build a Pomodoro clock. Again, we've already set up our project. I'm doing it in a virtual machine. I'm doing it in Cloud9. Again, you can do this on your desktop app or another virtual machine that has an IDE built in. They will all work. All right. We've gone through. We've used Bower to set up our front-end libraries, and we've got to use some fancy Linux commands so we can feel like a hacker. Ooh. Anyway, um, now I'm going to set up the index file. Before we do that, I'm going to walk you through how to get a sound. freeCodeCamp has a little sound, buzzer sound, but I'm going to show you a way that I've gone through and just kind of found another free sound somewhere, and I've been able to access that for my project itself. So let's go ahead and show you where I found it and how to link to it in our index file. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to bounce over to this is what I have, and this was our setup. Okay. And you can see that I've got my terminal open. I have my JavaScript, my CSS, index, and my index.html file. Right, we're going to start working on our index.html file that we created before. All right, and all I did was Google notification sounds, and it turns out there's a website called notificationsounds.com. And if you wrote and you click on your notification sound here, on the main page, I just clicked whatever one was the first one I clicked on because it doesn't really matter. Then that got to this page and it has all this download. I don't want to download this thing. I just want to find out where that sound is so I can access it. So I right click and then you can go to view page source, which opens up this. And you can see I'm on line 1039. What I've done is I've gone through, and what I'm looking for is a sound file here. And if you notice all this stuff, this looks like all menu stuff and list stuff. So let's take a look at this. You have a div class, spans, and have icons, right? You see all these different icons. Look, nav bar collapse. That tells me that everything that's indented here is part of all this big complicated nav bar. And again, drop down menu. We're still in drop down menus, and I just kind of kept scrolling. And I'm looking for a location. So I'm looking for like a web address that has something with the name of, I think this one's called Rising Up or something. Yeah, Rising Up. And so I just kind of went down through here, and I'm trying to look for something that has, look, HTTPS. Oh, look, this is exactly what I want. So look, there's the data title. And if you notice that this file here, the file is in an array. And I just want the MP3 version of this. And so here is all this stuff has pretty much, it's right here in this web address here. And you're going to have to go through and access this through this right here. All right, so I'm going to copy this file. All right. And just note, try to remember that this here is all in an array. All right, because it's going to be, we want to access the 0th position of this array once we navigate over here. Even though it has a different ending on it, but that's going to be minor. So let's go back to our thing here. Let's get our virtual machine here in our index.html. So I've gone through, we've accessed some free buzzer somewhere. Instead of me downloading it and hosting that file somewhere else, which is annoying, I could just find where that one is and don't bother with uploading it somewhere else. It's just easier that way. I'm going to start off here with HTML snippet. Oh, look, that gives me my doc type HTML. And I'll give myself some space. I need a head. There's my head snippet. If you are working in an IDE that doesn't autocomplete or doesn't autocomplete as much, like some of the free ones don't, it might take you a few seconds to catch up with me here. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to drop in some links and some scripts. All right, so we've got some links that we want to put in. All right, so here's our link snippet. Right, and the link gives us the style sheet that we want, and we're looking for the CSS or text. And again, we're going to navigate through our file structure. Remember, the HTML is in our main directory, and we're going to go to and link to our main CSS file. On our main CSS file, to get to it, we have to go to the CSS folder and then name that file index.css. So we can do that by saying css/index.css. And for all of my projects, I know you can actually name this the name of the project. It'd probably be a little bit more appropriate. But because of the way I'm doing this, when I go through and I build these projects, I want to be able to build them quickly and test them and move things around. So I generally use index.js, index.css, and index.html. So I can actually copy and paste the heads out of one file into another. So I can quickly try to modify and copy files, and everything just kind of works. Instead of going through and just forking everything. So there is my index.css. We have to connect to the JavaScript file, which is a script file, right? So there's my script snippet. And again, it's the same thing. It's going to be js/index.js. Why? Because I have a JS folder and it's index.js. If you named your folders and files different, make sure that you have the same folder name and file name so we're in the right spot. Now, the JavaScript can take longer to load, and this is going to be the order which the page loads. So I want to load that last or next to last. And you know what? The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load the audio, right? And there is no audio snippet. All right, so I'm going to put this in the head audio, all right? And it's going to give this an ID equal to buzzer. And this is going to be the buzzer for our project. And then it's going to ask me for a source, okay? So then I need to put the source or src. I'm going to set that equal. And actually, I think I already had the quotes on there, so I can just Control V. Yeah, there's my source. And that's taken right from here. I just went to the source file and I found where this stuff was located. And again, just took a look at the source code of that. So I could find out where that was. All right, and that's all you have to do for audio. Close that, and you can see it automatically. This mine actually closes my audio for me as well. Fancy. All right, so now I have the CSS, the HTML, and my buzzer sound that I'm going to use later on. I'm going to come down in here, and I'm also going to add in for this one. I'll show you how to add in Bootstrap. All right, so let's add in Bootstrap next. All right, and so where do we find Bootstrap? I'm going to close these directories. So it's in Bower Components, Bootstrap, dist, CSS. Move this over for you. And bootstrap.min.css. So I got to tell it all of this stuff, which you can see typing this out every time. It gets annoying. So if I can have something that's pre-made and I can just paste it in, it saves me a good few minutes. So if you have this head from your last project, guess what? The head's the same pretty much except for this audio buzzer. And actually, we moved this JavaScript into the body, so you need to pop that back into the head as well if you followed me before. So it's Bower _ components, right? Bower components. Make sure you spell that right. And then I'm going into Bootstrap, and then I'm going into dist, and then I'm going into CSS, and then going into bootstrap. All right, if something is broken in your project, it's probably because you mistyped some of the stuff in here. It's bootstrap css bootstrap.min.css. And again, the minify just takes all the spaces out of the all the code in the file and shrinks that file size down a little bit, so it's not really readable. If you just do bootstrap.css, the file is a little bigger. I don't really think it makes that big of a difference, but I just figured it was probably good practice to do that. So there's your bootstrap. And then I'm going to take the next link snippet here. And again, if you don't have the snippets already built into yours, you're going to have to type this out. So I'm just going down and hitting enter, so that way it automatically fills it. And so here we have Bower components, and you can see mine automatically detects it. I'm going to add in jQuery next. So Bower, jQuery. And you know what? I'll add font awesome next. Why? Because it's just next. And here we go. So Bower components slash font. Oops. Help if I'm typing in the window. Bower components slash font awesome slash CSS slash font awesome min.css. Right? Yep. Just again, check your file structure. Just make sure everything is font awesome, CSS, font awesome.min.css. Good. And the last thing is going to be jQuery dist jQuery min.js. All right, that's going to be our next one. And so our last link snippet is going to be Bower components slash jQuery slash dist slash jQuery.in.js. There we go. And we have a head. Nice. So that's all of our head tags. So there is our setup. All right. So all of this is our HTML document setup, which is pretty much the same thing that if you're using CodePen, does automatically when you click those little check boxes just to add in jQuery and all of that. We just did all of this setup manually up to this point. So if you've made it all the way up to this point, you're still just using CodePen, now you can start, essentially. But I figured now's a good time for you to learn this stuff as well. Oops, sorry about that. The microphone. The body on this is very, very simple, all right? So the HTML on this is just going to be, I'm going to go to my body snippet, and I have a body. I'm going to actually do this up because I can. All right, in the body, I'm going to start off like I usually do with a spacer. So I'm going to have a div, all right? And this div is going to be my spacer. Oops. I'm going to make this a class equal to spacer. Again, single quotes, double quotes, doesn't really matter right now. And then I'm going to put all this inside of a container fluid. So div class equals container fluid, and a container as well. Again, this is a bootstrap class. And then I want the text center on this. Text center on that. And I'm also going to give this the class of block. And if you see my other videos, I just use a block class and a spacer class a lot. Again, that's just something that I made up myself. All right. I'm sticking everything inside of this block class. And inside of here is going to be my entire project. All right. And I'm actually going to put a spacer on the bottom as well. So I'm going to take this, Control C, Control V. All right. So there we go. So I have a spacer on the top, a spacer on the bottom. So that way we have a little bit of wiggle room there, and I can adjust that spacer if I want. I just think it looks a little nicer so it doesn't stick to the bottom. And so our entire project is going to go here. All right. I'm going to start off with an H1 tag. So an H1. And that H1 is just going to say Pomodoro clock. Then I'll make an H3 here, and I'll just write freeCodeCamp. I'll preview this live file over here for you so you can see. All right, here we go. I'm not showing anything here. Well, I don't have any CSS or anything, but still Pomodoro clock should show up. Let's see. We'll take a look at this later. Not sure why that's not working right now. My connection is slow, or I might have messed something up. We'll see. It shouldn't really matter. So we have that. Then I'm going to create a few divs in here. All right. I'm going to create a div for the time, and I'm going to create a div for the break. Okay. So I need 2 divs for that, and then I'm going to put stuff in each. All right. So let's start off with dividing this up by a main time div here. So I'm going to put a div, and I'm going to target this with jQuery. So I just need an ID, and I'm going to set this equal to time div. And I'm going to have a lot of things named this, have to do with time and break time and stuff. So I'm going to make sure I keep this stuff pretty even here. And then I need to be able to grab all of this text and stuff and use jQuery to make it appear and disappear. So all of these sections need to have IDs. So every H1, H3 title all need to have that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create another title here. So this is going to be an H1, and this H1 is going to have an ID. So I want this ID to be, I'll call it title 1. I get a title. Do I already have a title? I'll call it title 1. ID equals title 1. Okay, no, title 1. And I will write session time in here. And I want a space, so I will break. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to add in an anchor tag. I'm going to add in a button. All right, and I need to have a plus and minus button here for this to work. And let's see if this. Wait, let me save this. And I want to preview. So here we go. You can kind of see my main div, my body, my div class spacer that has nothing on it, and my main container. There's no CSS. I just have to make sure I'm saving this as I go along. So you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I have a session time. I have a break. And inside of this next break, I'm going to have an anchor tag, and I'm going to put a button. All right, so I'm going to put a bootstrap button, right? So a href, all right, and then I'm going to set this href equal to nothing, right? Because I don't really need to do anything. I just needed to kind of like click and do nothing. And then it's going to have a class, and it's going to be bootstrap classes, okay? And you can see unmatched tags. Yes, I know. The class is going to equal btn. You can call it btn. You can call it btn1. You can call it, if you want a custom button, you go btn custom. Let's call it custom. Why? What's custom going to be? Well, it's going to be a custom class that I'm going to do. So there we go. And again, you can call it whatever you want, but all my buttons are going to be the same. And then I need an ID for this button even. So here I got to go. I got to have an ID. An ID has to equal something. And I'm going to close this preview for right. You know what? I'm going to move this preview. Down here. How's that? Look at that. It's fancy. So the ID here is going to be -5 time. All right, it's going to be -5 on the timer. And that's just going to have a minus in it. All right. Let's save that. And you can see I have a little minus button right there. That doesn't do anything. Good, so I have a minus button. Then I needed an H2. And this H2 needs to have an ID. All right, so then this ID. This is actually going to be the amount of time in this session. So I'm just going to call this ID session. ID equals session. All right. And I'm going to append this later. So there's going to be nothing in this session ID H2. Then I'm going to have another H2. Everything's a different size, right? And I'm going to call this ID num. Oops. Not IS. ID num. Equals num. I hope I got this right. ID equals num. And I'm just going to use 5 for now. So now you have a minus, then a 5. All right. And then I'm gonna need a plus, right? So this minus 5a. So I'm going to take all of this, because it pretty much is going to be the same thing. Control C. Go nowhere. It's a button. It's a button custom. All right. Except the difference is it needs to be an A5 time instead of a, for add 5 on the time. And it's going to be a plus. I have a minus and a plus. And then I'm going to go down here and I want to have a reset button. Actually, let me put a line break in. Break. Again, I'm going to have another empty button. Button. And this one is going to be my reset button. ID is reset. Let's say reset. And you can see I have a reset, a plus, and a minus. And guess what? That's going to be how much time we're going to be adding to our clock. All right, so there is my time div. So let's, and you can see with the IDEs, they line everything up for you. So div, good. And then I'm going to need another div here for the break time. I have a div here. So I have the time div, and then I'll call this one div. I'm going to give this an ID equal to break div. All right, so there's break div. All right, and now inside the break div, I kind of want the same thing. I want a -5 break, and then I need a number, and then I need a title. All right, so in that title, I guess I can hide that as well. So I pretty much need the same thing here, except I don't need a reset, right? So I need all of this stuff. Add this in. I don't want this to say session time. I want this to say now break time. I don't want -5 time on this minus button. I want -M5 break. I don't want this to say an ID of H2 being session. All right. So this session, I don't need this. Yeah, I don't need that. So I have a -5 break, and then I have this num. I don't want num. I don't want the same number. I'll call this break num. That could still be 5. Add 5. Break. So I have a title one, which is break time. There we go. So I have plus, minus, reset, and then I have minus, plus, and separately on here, now I have to. All right, so I have all of this. And the only last thing that I'm going to need is I'm going to need a button custom to kick off this clock. and it's going to be outside of my break div because that start, I'm going to want to make that button appear and reappear separately from this break div. So I'm going to have a separate anchor tag. It's going to do nothing. It's going to be a button custom, except the ID here is going to be my start button. And save. And that's it. There is our body HTML all finished up. And you can kind of see what it looks like. There's a session time, a plus, a minus, a reset, and then a start, all done and ready to go. Alrighty, so that's your HTML finished. There's your HTML sets, all of your coding done, and you have your HTML, your head tags, your audio, and we're ready to go for CSS, and then finally some jQuery stuff. So again, I hope all this stuff is helpful, and I will see you all next time.